When America's founding fathers wrote the Bill of Rights, they enshrined freedom of the press in the very First Amendment.
The freedom of the press was one of the foundational elements of democracy and one of the most important elements. But the press was very different in those days, and maybe that's a good reminder when we look at our partisan bickering and polarization today. The press was very partisan.
The idea was partly an extension of political competition and partly a belief that robust debate and argument would, over time, create a healthier democracy and a more informed citizenry. This was still early in the idea that the press should be fact-based.
The democratic process requires a government watchdog, an independent force that holds leaders accountable to the voters who elected them.
We have believed in our country that a free and independent press provides the best information that people can get, so they make good decisions, elect good leaders, and we have a good country.
It is the fundamental check on power. It's not enough to have a Congress, a Supreme Court, and a president. You need someone outside of that entire structure to maintain vigilant watch over it. And that's the role of the media.
The press also serves our lawmakers.
When I was in the CIA, I relied heavily on open source information, and we were able to monitor what was being said around the world. But I felt that our intelligence capabilities augmented significantly that open source information.
I actually got to see a lot of secrets. I don't go back for briefings, right? I read what's available in the press. I think I know as much about what's going on in the world today as I did my last day as director of CIA, based upon a careful, critical reading of publicly available sources.
I was on the Intelligence Committee for a while, and you do have access to lots of information that are not in the media. The dirty little secret, though, is journalists are pretty good.
Reporters have assets that the government can't match. Reporters have cameras everywhere around the globe. They can freely stand on street corners as the media and film. Governments can't do that. The press has immense power.
It was during the Vietnam War that the era of modern media came of age. Trust in the media reached new heights.
Direct from our newsroom in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
The enemy in Vietnam is all too often invisible, striking without warning from the shadows. But tonight, the face of the enemy in rare films of the Viet Cong.
Walter Cronkite, who was a kind of father figure, an arbiter of what was true or not, anchoring the CBS Evening News, sort of turned against the war on the air and almost provided a kind of nonpartisan judgment that the war was failing at a moment when Americans were searching for understanding about the war's course.
The 70s was an irregular high point, and I think that's because there was this real sort of like afterglow effect that the press got from the coverage of Vietnam, from Watergate.
On the 6th floor of the building behind me, 5 men with electronic gear were caught in the offices of the Democratic National Committee.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
As well, the fact that we had limited news sources that were pretty uniform and were required by law under FCC regulations to give a balanced picture. What happened in the 1980s? Ronald Reagan deregulated through the FCC. He deregulated communication channels. And the Fairness Act and everything sort of went out the window.